Hey everyone, I'm Ryan Nix.
And this is Brittany. And this is
Pure Malice into the paranormal. Because when true crime isn't enough, we cross into the unknown. A true crime podcast. The information shared in this podcast or on this website is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The host will not be held responsible for any misled interpretations of this content. The opinions and views expressed are those of the host and guest and should not be considered advice. We cannot guarantee the accuracy of any statements from guests or the sufficiency of the information. Are you ready to lose weight and keep it off? At Vital Flow Aesthetics and Wellness, we offer powerful, medically supervised weight loss solutions using semaglutide and tirzepatide, the same game-changing medications making headlines across the country. Our expert team will guide you every step of the way so you can achieve real results safely and confidently. Feel better, look better, live better. Call Vital Flow Aesthetics and Wellness today at 254-310-7131 and start your transformation. Vital Flow, where wellness meets results. All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Ryan Nix.
And I'm Brittany.
And this is Pure Malice into the paranormal. Thanks for joining us. This week, we're picking back up with the State Penitentiary. In case you missed the last episode, we will give you a quick recap.
So last week we went over the history of the prison, including why it was originally built, which ironically was for prison reform. We went over some of the most notorious inmates that were housed there, including Al Capone and Willie Sutton. We went over some of the escape attempts, including the single and only successful escape, as well as some of the controversial methods of punishment that inmates endured while they were there. So this included ice baths, exposure to the elements, iron gag, mad chair, and eventually Klondike cells, which were basically solitary confinement cells that were about the size of a tomb.
And last but not least, we also covered the first guard murder. In this week's episode, we're finally going to get to the good stuff, the hauntings that take place here at the Eastern State Penitentiary. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I love history, especially whenever it comes to places like this. But let's face it, the hauntings and those type of experiences, the things that seem unbelievable, that's the fun stuff.
So over time, the corridors of the prison, they slowly crumbled. It was abandoned for almost 2 decades before it was opened back up as a historic site and a museum, which was in 1994.
That's a long time to be closed.
Yeah, 20 years. That's half my life.
Yep.
So 1994 is when they opened it back up as a historic site and a museum. They were offering tours. They let visitors explore the ruins, all while they learned about its grim history. So they host a haunted house called Terror Behind the Walls every Halloween.
So, its haunted house is one of the country's top-ranking haunted attractions, and more than 200 performers are part of the show that's designed to send even the bravest people crying for their mommies.
I bet those performers have the best stories.
So, that is actually where several encounters that take place during the haunted attraction.
And get this, if a haunted attraction in a haunted prison isn't creepy enough for you, you can sign a special consent form and they'll mark you, and that lets the performers know that you are agreeing to being grabbed, held back, or taken into hidden passageways. So they've been known also to host a series of site-specific artist installations on the grounds. For example, like Al Capone's cell, they will do an Al Capone themed scene for the people that have paid to go through these haunted houses.
I thought that was pretty cool that they do art installations throughout the property, but it's just cool. It was cool to me.
I don't know, it's kinda weird, but I could see where it would be a good way to make money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
and talk about history and whatever, and that history is neat
Right.
because they're psychopaths, so you're learning about these psychopaths and how their minds work and what they did. There's, like, a whole museum in Vegas set up for the mob, you know?
I would go to it.
Yeah, I've been to it twice. So fun fact, former guy named Ben Bookman in the Eastern State Penitentiary doesn't officially claim to be haunted. I don't know. I think that several places that don't make that claim to fame because of religious views or political views. However, they obviously take some part in this or they wouldn't have a haunted house.
I agree with you. Yes, you're exactly right. I think religious beliefs play into that. Plenty of places don't claim it, but just because they don't claim it doesn't mean that they don't make money or exploit off of it. They
Yeah.
do. So that being said, the prison, which closed in 1971, It's considered by several sources to be one of the most haunted places in America. It's been featured on the Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures and Most Haunted Live, Sci-Fi's Ghost Hunters, and MTV's Fear. Dozens of paranormal researchers visit every year and report that it's a hub for otherworldly activity. There are also the stories of eerie experiences by visitors, staff, guards, and inmates that have corroborated each other since the 1940s. And I mean, if you think about it, Eastern State Pen was built on isolation and fear. This Gothic style prison was designed to inspire penitence through solitary confinement. It began with the radical concept that inmates would live in total isolation.
Isolation. They wore a hood every time they left their cell in the beginning years, the very early years, to prevent any kind of interaction whatsoever. While this system was intended to encourage reflection, it actually led to severe psychological effects, which we talked about that a lot in the last episode. Prisoners were locked in, they were in cramped up spaces, windowless cells with nothing but a skylight, which was also known as the Eye of God. So many of them experienced hallucinations and insanity due to the isolation and loneliness. And that oppressive atmosphere seems to have kind of laid the groundwork for its haunting and its eerie reputation today. Many believe that the suffering endured by the inmates at the prison left an emotional residue that persists today. So, if you get into the paranormal realm, they talk a lot about energy and how energy is stored, how you can have your residual hauntings, you can have your intelligent hauntings, and so this is kind of laying that groundwork for the negative energy that's been trapped there and that still seems to reside there today.
Yep. For decades, visitors and staff reported ghostly activity at this prison, hearing whispers, sobs, laughter, and footsteps, particularly in cell blocks associated with solitary confinement and death row. So, some areas like cell block 4 and the solitary confinement cells are said to evoke feelings of despair, unease, and dread. Shadows move without explanation, disembodied voices echo, and sudden cold spots chill the air.
So there have been reports of being touched or grabbed. Several people have reported seeing a shadowy figure standing at the top of the prison guard towers. Some of the more notable ghostly encounters include the locksmith's experience, the shadowy figure, and the terror behind the walls. So we're going to get into each one of those separately. The locksmith experience is the most well known story out there pertaining to Eastern State Penitentiary, and it took place in the 1990s. So there was a locksmith named Gary Johnson.
That made me think of Mr. Johnson off Abbott Elementary.
I don't even know what that is. So anyway, so he was hired to renovate part of cell block 4, and while he was removing a lock from the cell, he found himself completely overcome by an unseen force that seemed to overpower him. He felt paralyzed. He claimed that the negative energy exploded out of the cell while the distorted faces appeared on cell walls. Yeah, wow. It's the
It's
most
literally
terrifying one. And then there's the shadowy figure. So this comes from numerous visitors claiming to have seen a dark, shadowy figure that lurks near the prison's old death row cells. It's said that this figure moves swiftly and vanishes when approached. And the terror behind the walls is their annual haunted house attraction. And it's said that many actors and staff frequently report supernatural occurrences, including being touched or hearing footsteps when they're alone.
Okay, so I would really love to visit this place, and I can only imagine doing, like, a haunted house at a place like this. I mean, I would love to go, but you're probably so already taken over with fear and anxiety just trying to get up here to go.
Well, you have like this predisposed opinion. Like before you ever get there, you have this predisposed bias because you know what to expect or you're hoping to expect something. And then everybody knows your mind plays tricks on you, right? So
Mhm.
it just makes it tough. Like, is it real? Is it my mind? Did somebody else
That's what so
experience
many
it?
that's what people argue, is that people have this notion in their head that all these terrible things took place, and so is it really haunted or is it just your own mind tricking you?
Yeah, and so that's where the technology comes in. So, like, Ghost Adventures and some of them, they have access to, like, some of the most world-renowned researchers, scientists, technology out there. And so they can literally catch some things. Now, granted, they might be there for 24 hours and they catch 20 minutes worth of stuff, but to them, that's great. That's what they're doing. And they know that
Mhm.
going in, so it's kinda neat. Science can back it up.
Mhm. So, Eastern State Penitentiary isn't just a historic site, it's one of the most terrifying places in the country. This haunted jail in Philly was once home to some of the harshest punishments imaginable. Brittany talked about some of those earlier. prisoners were locked in total isolation, subjected to brutal treatment, and many met gruesome ends behind its cold stone walls. Now, those dark echoes of the past refuse to stay buried. Screams, shadows, and strange voices fill the air, drawing ghost hunters and thrill seekers from around the world. It's no wonder this haunted prison in Philadelphia remains one of the most investigated paranormal hotspots in the U.S. What spirits still linger in this haunted prison, and why can't they move on?
That's like the $1,000,000 question, right? Then there's also, like, some of these paranormal teams that go in and their whole goal is to move the spirits on. But then you get into energy, so if it's residual energy and it's just absorbed into the environment, then will it ever move on or will it ever let up? The system itself, the prison system back in this time, the reformed system, although the system, it seemed indiscriminate, there was one inmate that seemed to have it a little bit easier than the rest at Eastern State Pen. So his stay was just downright luxurious. So his cell contained beautiful antique furniture, priceless works of art, and even an oriental rug. So this prisoner was even allowed visits from his family, his criminal friends on the outside, and guess who it was? I think we talked about it a little bit in the last episode, but
It was none other than the notorious mob boss himself, Al Capone.
yeah. So May 17th, 1929, Capone and his bodyguard were picked up in Philadelphia on their way to Atlantic City, New Jersey, going back home to Chicago, and they were arrested outside of a movie theater on concealed weapon charges when Capone was found with an unlicensed .38 caliber revolver. Justice was swift, and within 16 hours of the double arrest, both were slapped with 1-year prison terms. So,
Yeah.
according to the Patriot News, they accused the gangster of tipping off authorities and staging his own arrest after being believed to have been behind the St. Valentine's Day massacre, which took place 3 months earlier. Also known as Scarface, Capone was history's most notorious gangster and the mastermind behind the St. Valentine's Day massacre. So, despite the jailhouse opulence, the infamous mobster was constantly on edge and his nights were sleepless. He explained to the guards that he believed he was being haunted by the ghost of one of his old victims, James Clark. Clark was one of the men killed during the St. Valentine's Massacre, and he showed up after death to torture Capone during his stay in the prison. It would be one of the many hauntings that would plague the penitentiary and turn it into a spectral hotspot. During the massacre, 7 rival gangsters were lined up against a wall and slain by machine guns. Capone was in Florida at the time of the mass shooting, according to the FBI, but suspicions were high that he was the ringleader, and this would have made him a target for rival gangs. So Capone was ultimately transferred to Eastern State Pen, where he spent a little more than 7 months. He was released March 17th of 1930 for good behavior, according to the FBI.
Now, this one is not paranormal in the least, but it is interesting nonetheless, so I wanted to mention it. Another famous prisoner wasn't actually human. One animal was imprisoned at Eastern State Pen whenever Pennsylvania Governor Gifford Pinchot sentenced a dog believed to have murdered his wife's cats to life behind bars. So, the dog was welcomed by the guards and issued an inmate identification number, and he also sat for a mugshot.
He was well trained.
Oh, yeah, he sat for a mugshot.
That's such a waste of money.
It's a huge waste of money, but, it was done. So as we have mentioned, the Eastern State Pen has been featured on several TV shows. TLC's America's Ghost Hunters, Travel Channel's Most Haunted Live, MTV's Fear, Ghost Adventures, and Paranormal Challenge, Sci-Fi's Ghost Hunters, and Fox Television's World's Scariest Places have all showcased Eastern State Pen.
So Portals to Hell was one of them. That was a paranormal reality television series that was hosted by Jack Osborne and Katrina Weidman. It aired on Discovery Plus from 2019 to 2022. One of the guests was Zach Hino. He was on the show. He shared about his paranormal encounter when he visited Eastern State. And Zach said that his buddies called him up wanting to go on tour of the penitentiary, and he lived in the area for a while, so he'd heard about the penitentiary, and even though he was a skeptic, he went with his friends to do the tour anyways. He was in cell block 1. He was standing in the cell alone because this cell had a door that could be closed, and his friends were on the other side of the door when he felt something on his back. He looked behind him, thinking he had backed into the wall or maybe his shirt was folded up, but when he looked back, he heard what sounded like a child's giggle, and then a voice said, "Watch your back." He then looked in the direction of the closed cell door, and he became overwhelmed with fear as he saw a face and 2 dark eyes appear. So, as stated, he was already pretty skeptical. So, in his head, he was thinking, "What did I just see? What is this? Is my mind playing tricks on me? What's going on?" So they continue on their tour, and they're going through the section of the tour that talks about how the inmates wore hoods when they were taken out of their cells. He said when he saw the picture of the hood, he realized right then and there that that was the face that he saw while being shut into the door of cell block 1. He said it terrified him, and whatever it was that reached out to him was straight out of the pits of hell. It was said that it gave him fear that he couldn't put into words.
I have the clip of him telling his story, but due to copyright issues, we cannot play it for you. But if you've never seen this episode for yourself, go look it up on YouTube or wherever and check it out and listen to him talk about his experience. And as you can hear from the tone of his voice, he was absolutely terrified just talking about it. To him, it was a very real experience. So, moving on to Ghost Adventures. On an episode of Ghost Adventures, they are in cell block 4, which is where the locksmith experience took place. And as Nick is in the exact same spot that the locksmith was, he captured a disembodied voice on his digital recorder that said his name. And their static audio night vision cameras picked up an unexplained scream at the exact time that their infrared lights were drained of all their power. Could this have been a spirit drawing the energy from their equipment to be heard?
Maybe.
Yep, you never know.
So that's part of the theory, though, is like the intelligent spirits, they draw energy from the surrounding environment. So when those places come in with all their equipment, a lot of times they'll find that their equipment will die. Like they come in with 5 batteries, all 100% charged. They've been there for less than 5 minutes, and bam, all dead.
So that's actually what you see a lot in the rotunda of Eastern State Pen, which is the hub of the prison. And that's actually one of the experiences that we're about to talk about.
Yeah, so on a TV show called Fear, this was also an American paranormal reality television series that originally aired in 2000 and 2002 on MTV. This program followed a group of 5 or more contestants who were left at an allegedly haunted location and led on a series of dares over 2 nights to explore the location and determine whether or not it was haunted. This series was canceled not because of lack of interest. It was actually the second most popular show on MTV at the time of its cancellation, but because of the high cost of producing each episode.
Think about that too. If it was the second most watched show on MTV, I mean, that's a ton of people tuning into that show.
Yeah, I'm sure it was really high because they had to rent out each of these places for the night or, whatever. I really was hoping they were gonna say they had to stop the show because people were being affected by it, but they didn't say
You're
that.
so stupid.
So anyways, they had an episode on there where their contestants stayed overnight at the Eastern State Pen. One of the contestants got strapped down to the mad chair on the show, and it's referred to as the tranquility chair for over an hour and a half. And when she was finally released, her fingers were so numb she couldn't feel them. Another one had to endure the iron gag for an hour and 30 minutes. 2 contestants were sent to the rotunda, which was like the hub of the prison, and they experienced battery failure. So something was sucking all the energy out of their batteries, draining them, which is apparently a common occurrence in that area of the prison. And we also know that this is an indication of paranormal activity, like we talked about earlier. So one of the contestants also said that the entire time she was walking through the ground, she was constantly stumbling and losing her balance, and that it felt as if someone or something was consistently pushing her around. And that could just be from the energy and the environment affecting you. She was
Uh,
probably a weakling.
so the one who said that it was pushing her around, so she was actually with the other contestant whenever all of the energy got drained from their equipment. So yeah, she should have been like a weakling. Out of the mad chair and the iron gag, which would you have rather have done in that situation? Would you have rather been strapped down in the chair or had the gag and had your hands behind your back?
I
And
don't
would
want either one of them.
if you could make $5,000, if you could complete one or the other, what would you do?
Well, I guess I would just do the chair. I can't have some on my face.
So it literally has the thing over your nose. So the gag only has it in your mouth. It doesn't have
I
something
don't
over
want
your face.
nothing in my mouth.
That's exactly my thought. I would be in the mad chair.
Absolutely not. I hope they all got tetanus shots before they went or after.
Well, I'm sure that they made sure everything was taken care of for them, so uh,
Absolutely not. $5,000, that's not even worth it.
basically, the show, how it worked is usually 5 to 6 contestants. Each of them would have a separate dare, and for all of them who completed the dare, at the end of the show, they all split the prize money. You basically would have gotten $5,000 if everyone completed it, and they stayed overnight.
Well, I'm not a good competitor, so the weak link, you better step it up. Especially if I had to sit there with a gag in my mouth.
So here's the kicker, I guess, for this show is that they didn't pick the dares they got to do. They were assigned a dare, and each one of them had to do whatever they were assigned, or you tapped out and you lost out on the prize money, and so did your group.
Mm-mm.
So on to the show Ghost Hunters. This is my favorite story.
I think I've seen this one. That's the only thing I do watch on TV is ghost shows.
Yeah.
FYI.
And you probably have seen this one. I was gonna show you the video if you haven't, but so on to the show Ghost Hunters, who also filmed an episode at Eastern State Pen. Investigators of that show were certainly spooked after they saw the shadowy figure in cell block 12. They actually bolted and they ran out of the room, but luckily they were able to capture it on video later on in a different cell block, which was cell block 4. So 18 minutes into season 1, in episode 5, you can see the video evidence that they collected. So let me just say, I did watch this video, and I genuinely believe that they captured the shadowy figure that so many visitors and investigators have reported seeing at Eastern State Penitentiary. One of the biggest reasons I'm convinced is because you can clearly see the camera's reflection until the figure walks by it. The reflection vanishes like something physically passed in front of it. That tells me that something real was there. And according to the show, the footage was recorded while the entire Ghost Hunters team and Eastern State Pen staff were outside eating dinner. So no one else should have been in the building at that time. Creepy, right?
So yeah, so that's the biggest thing. It's like whenever you watch these ghost shows, and I'll be honest, like Ghost Adventures, I feel like Zach gets really worked up and really dramatic.
He does.
And I think some of that's his personality. I think some of that's for the show. But are they trying to debunk anything? Like, are they actually debunking anything? So, like, here they're like, we were all outside. There was nobody there. We caught this video. I'm just saying, like, for people that have never watched one of those shows or they've never been involved in anything like that, like, it's just important to try to find alternate reasoning for something to happen. So, it's kind of cool whenever you're like, we were literally all outside. Nobody else was on the grounds. The grounds were locked. This is what we caught,
Mm-hmm. So many people would not continue going if there wasn't enough evidence captured here to convince people that it truly is a hotspot for activity.
So there's countless stories out there. There's lots of personal accounts, eerie encounters, even chilling video evidence and audio evidence as well. We know where we stand, okay, but what do you believe?
I'm Ryan Nix.
And I'm Brittany.
Thanks for joining us.
Come back next time for more pure malice into the paranormal. When true crime isn't enough, we cross into the unknown.
The information shared in this podcast or on this website is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The host will not be held responsible for any misled interpretations of this content. The opinions and views expressed are those of the host and guest and should not be considered advice. We cannot guarantee the accuracy of any statements from guests or the sufficiency of the information. Self-care isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. At Vital Flow Aesthetics and Wellness, they believe in helping you look and feel your absolute best. Whether you're looking for a rejuvenating medical-grade facial, Botox, fillers, or help on your weight loss journey, their expert team is there to enhance your natural beauty with personalized care. Ready to glow from the inside out? Book your appointment today at Vital Flow Aesthetics and Wellness and experience the confidence you deserve. Located inside Tejas Urgent Care in Mejia, Texas. Call or text now to book your appointment at 254-310-7131. Again, that's 254-310-7131.